Okay, right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So this afternoon session for Word track changes, it will take you through from the very basics of turning on track changes, all through the different options of using it. We'll also look at a couple of options for being able to compare or combine documents without having to turn on track changes. But initially, we'll have a look at options for turning it on. So within our track changes, so just under the review tab, more or less in the center, we've got our tracking, our markup, and our comments. So with track changes, if I just hover onto track changes, the actual button itself is split into two parts. So the top half of the button, just for information, just simply turns track changes on and off. The bottom half has a small menu that you can use. So turning on track changes, just things to be aware of. You can turn on track changes for everybody that makes any edits or changes within the document, or you can turn on track changes just to track your own changes. So this is handy if you're working on a document that's your own, but you don't want to save your changes. So tracking just your own changes allows you to draft through a document. If you then later change your mind, you can just reject those changes. So, but as I say, for everyone, it turns on track changes for everybody that is going to look at and edit this document. Now, one other thing that you may want to use is something called lock tracking. It was a relatively new feature for 365, albeit it was sort of brought to the forefront. Lock tracking, if I go into it, turns on track changes, and it allows you to lock it as switched on with a password. As it mentions in the detail, it's not a security feature. What it is used for, though, is just simply to stop people either intentionally or often accidentally turning off track changes and making edits to your document. So it is just simply a case of enter the password that you want to use and repeat. Confirm with OK. Now, if you notice, the track changes button now becomes grayed out. I now cannot turn off track changes. If I go onto the bottom half, it tells me it's locked. If I want to unlock it, I need to know the password to turn off track changes. So it is a handy tool, especially if you're sending it to external people to review, just to make sure that they don't accidentally turn off track changes and make some edits that aren't going to be obvious. You can lock it as switched on. The other thing, once it's locked, is you can't accept or reject changes. So I'm just going to put some text into this document. So added some text into my document, hover over it, it tells me that I made this change, the date and time that I made it. Because it's locked, I cannot accept or reject the changes. So tracking, while it is tracking everything that I do, I can't finalize this document and accept or reject them. I can navigate through previous and next. I can change my markup. So within track changes, mine is set for all markup. So the markup is how do you want the track changes to be displayed? So all markup, as we can see now, it's using the standard underline. If I delete something, it would be strike through. There is also an option of something called simple markup, which simply puts a line in the left-hand margin to indicate something has been changed in this area. If I click onto the line, it then flips my view to show me all of the markup, to show me what has been changed. The other options I've got is I can set it to say I don't want to see any markup. No markup effectively shows me what the document would look like if I accepted all of the changes. And the other option is I can go back to the original to show me what did the document look like before any changes were made. So we've got simple markup, just puts a little marker in the left-hand margin to indicate something was changed. We've got all markup, which shows me my underline, strike through for edits. We've got no markup, which, remember, no markup is this is what it would look like if I accepted all of the changes in the document. And then we've got the original to say, what did it look like before any of these changes were tracked? I'm just going to unlock track changes. So I just need to put in the password. Okay, I've now got options. I can turn it off. I can now accept and reject. So I've got a sample document that I'm going to use. So if I just jump into here, I've got this document called How to Buy a House. So when I open this document up, Word tells me straight away, track changes is enabled. I can click OK. And just up in the top right corner, it tells me this has opened it in reviewing mode. The reason it's done this is because track changes is switched on, I can access it, but it is going to track anything that I change as a suggestion for changes rather than me being able to just jump in, make changes and save it as I go along. Now, if I just go over to the review tab, I can then see track changes is slightly shaded to show track changes is actually switched on in this document. Now, if I go into the document, as I mentioned, I've come in as reviewing, so it gives me the option. I can suggest changes and I can add comments. Or I can switch it to say, I want to edit it and I can make changes, or I've got the option, I can just view it. Now I'm going to go into edit it. When I change it to editing, if you notice, it turns off track changes. So if I go back to reviewing, if I set the document as reviewing, it turns track changes back on. If I'd locked it, it wouldn't give me the option of swapping this to editing. So with my track changes turned on, so this document has got a few changes in it. So I can use my navigation to browse through them. So I'll just use next to have a look through this. So somebody's updated, there's a deletion, and if I hover over it, it'll tell me, in this case, Mike Boss deleted this, and then they added in this text. I browse through. It then shows me, now this in green, slightly different. So Bob in HR, this in green shows me that they formatted this as a bulleted list. So all of the text existed, but they applied some different formatting. Let's browse through. Some additional changes. 203,000 was changed to 311. There's some comments within here. So Mike Boss has made some comments about these figures. Are they correct? We've got another reply within here, and Sarah from marketing is going to double check them. So let's have a look through any other changes. And if I just hover over, so Mike Boss made a comment. Let's find some other changes. Now, our standard setting for track changes is each individual person's changes are in a different color. So if you noticed, Mike Boss are in a sort of a purple color. There's one here in green. Bob in HR made this change. So one thing that I am asked quite often with regards to track changes is, can I control what color my changes will be? And the answer is no. Word has, if I remember correctly, 9 different colors, all preset. It usually starts with red, then goes to blue, then goes to green, purple, and so on. But you can't choose whether your changes will be a particular color. If you're the first person to edit a document, there would normally be red. But it is something that I do get asked quite a lot. So we can go through. There's some more changes within here. Bob in HR made some edits. So we can use our previous and next to navigate through. So let's just jump back up to the start of this document. So with our markup, so at the moment it's set showing all markup. Anything that's deleted is strike through. Anything that's been added is underline. And it's also picked up whether there's been any formatting changes. So in our markup section, we've got all markup. Just below this, you've got the option of what markup or changes do you want to see. So insertions and deletions. We've also got to show formatting changes. Now, this you may want to turn off if people haven't actually changed the content of the document, but they've changed the font or they've changed the font size, they've changed alignment. If you're not interested in that, you can turn that off to say, I don't want to see formatting. Do you want to show revisions in balloons? Do you want to show revisions in line, which is what we've got at the moment? Or do you only want to show formatting within balloons? Now, if I flip this round to show in balloons, when this was first introduced by Microsoft, it was a little bit of a Marmite feature. Some people loved it. A lot of people really didn't like it. It's very much personal preference. The thing to note with it is if somebody switches on balloons, Word will retain those changes are going to be in balloons. So if I go back into balloons, I can set it back to only show them in revisions in line. We've also got options for seeing changes for specific people. So at the moment, it's showing me everybody's changes. However, I could change this. So I go into show markup, and I might want to see, I only want to see changes that Mike, the boss, has made. So if I untick all reviewers, I can tick Mike Boss. Now, when I go through next, it only shows me changes that that person has made to my document. There are other changes as we've seen, but I can narrow it down to say I only want to see one individual person's changes. So, and I can swap it back. So it might be I want to see Mike and Bob's from HR. So I can turn these on. And I can set it back to say, oh, actually, I want to see everybody's changes. Other options within markup, filtering. So it gives me the option, for example, I can filter by active or by resolved markups. And by this, what it's talking about is with comments. So if I go through to a comment, so Mike Boss has asked whether these figures are actually correct, and somebody's going to check. Assuming Sarah from marketing has checked, she would be able to come into this and mark this thread as being resolved. There is the option to delete the entire conversation as well, but there would be an option if, yes, I have confirmed, I can mark it as I've resolved this. Still leaves that there was something happened, but it just gives me a little marker to say this comment has been resolved. So it does give me the option that I can filter them to say I only want to see the ones that are active, or I want to see ones that have been resolved. Okay. And if I click onto it, it will open it up in the comments and I can review them. Okay. So as far as accepting and rejecting changes, if I just go back through a few of these changes. Okay, so accepting and rejecting changes. Accept and reject, just like the track changes, the button is split into two. The top half of the button will accept the change that you're currently got selected. The bottom half gives me a whole raft of different options. So if I'm starting at the very top of the document, I can accept this and move on to the next one. I don't need to be scrolling through. I can just say, just accept this one change. I can accept all of the changes that are shown. This links back to I'll show markup, specific people. With this, these two can link together, so I can see Mike Boss's change. Find the next one. When I go to accept, accepting all changes shown will accept all of the changes made by Mike Boss. It will leave the other changes unaccepted. So set this back. So it's an important one to note that if you've reviewed a document and there is one particular editor's changes that you're happy with, you can go into your show markup, find the specific person, and then go through and accept all of their changes in one go if you wanted to. There's also the option, if I've reviewed everything and I'm quite happy, I can accept all of the changes. And there's the option to say, I want to accept all of the changes and stop tracking. What this does is accepts all of the changes and it turns off track changes. So it is a case of, if you do use this, be sure that you're not going to make any further changes because they won't be tracked. This is effectively, okay, this document is now final. I'm going to accept all of these and I'm going to turn off track changes. We've got exactly the same with reject. I can reject an initial change, move to the next one. I can just reject the change that's selected. I can reject all of the changes that are currently being shown. I can reject everything that's being done. And again, I can reject the changes and I can turn off track changes. Just to highlight a couple of the questions that we had, I'll just jump up to the top of the document. One of the questions that we'd had prior is whether you can disable track changes without accepting or rejecting. So you can still see them, but you don't have to accept or reject them. The simple answer is yes, you can. You can just simply turn off track changes. Turning off track changes, I'm now in editing mode. However, all of the changes that had been made are still tracked and all still exist within the document. All it means is if I make any further changes, they won't be tracked. So there is the option to say, I don't want to track any further changes, but I do want to keep a detailed list of what's been changed historically. You can just simply turn off track changes. Another one was how to turn off track changes once everything has been agreed. So as I'd mentioned, with accepting and rejecting, there is the option to say, okay, I want to accept everything and stop tracking. Alternatively, you would just simply turn off track changes, or you could swap from reviewing and swap to editing. It would just be a case of, if you want to be sure that you have accepted and or rejected all changes, whether track changes is switched on or off, just come into the review and just click next. If there are no changes left within the document, it will say this document doesn't contain any track changes. Okay. One of the other questions that we were asked is there a way to allow access for everyone to view the document, but only for a few people to actually make changes and have changes tracked? And the answer to that is yes, you can do that. What I will do is I'll just close this document and I'll open a different one. Let me just close out of this. And I'm going to open up How to Buy a House version 1. Okay, so this document doesn't contain any track changes. So if I go to review, track changes is turned off. I'm in editing mode. If I click next, it tells me there aren't any track changes in my document. However, what I want to do is I want to turn on track changes, but I want to limit who can actually make edits to this document. So it involves a couple of things under the review tab. So what I will need to do is I'll need to switch on track changes. So I'll just turn it on using the top half. I've turned on track changes. We're now reviewing. The next thing I'm going to do is highlight the entire document. So a keyboard shortcut. If you hold down Control and press A, it will select the entire document. I don't need to go and scroll through all 10 pages to make sure that I've selected everything. So with my track changes turned on, I've selected the entire document. Over towards the right, we've got this option that we can protect this document. Now, there's a couple of different options that we've got. If this document is stored within a Teams channel or it's stored within SharePoint and we're co-authoring. So what it would give me the option is I can block authors from being able to make changes. So if I go into block authors, if I release all these, so I can block people from making changes. The other thing I can do is I can restrict editing. This is much more flexible. So when I go to restrict editing, so restricting editing, and it's this middle section, editing restriction, I only want to allow this type of editing. So I'll select this and I'm going to say it's track changes. The alternative is I'm going to say it's read only. So track changes links back to lock tracking. I can lock it down in here as well. However, I'm going to mark it as read only. I can then set exceptions. So as it says within the details, select the parts of the documents and choose who is allowed to freely edit them. So I don't want to allow everyone to edit it. I've just made it as read only. If I go to more users, I can then add the names or email addresses of people that I do want to be allowed to edit this document. And I'll just copy and paste. Oops. Just copy a user. So these people that had been editing that other document that we'd looked at, I'll just copy this. I'll add another user. I'll just paste it in. So I'm going to allow Mike Boss at kissdemo.co.uk to make edits to this document. And if I wanted to add another one, I might also allow Bob. I'll add another user. Okay, so now Bob and Mike can edit the area that I've got selected in this document. So they can make their changes, they'll be tracked. Everyone else, they'll see the changes, they can't make any edits to it though. So I'll just say, yes, I want to start enforcing protection. It gives me the option. I can also put in a password to say if somebody wants to turn this off, they need a password to do it. I'll drop a password in. And okay. It then gives me options. When I open it up, find the next region I can edit, show all regions. So in this case, I've locked this down. So I'm logged in as James Smith at Kiss. If I tried to find a region I can edit, it just tells me it's finished searching. There are no areas of this document. So even though I'm effectively the owner, I have locked out everybody apart from Mike Boss and Bob in HR from editing this document. If I want to stop the protection, I need the password. Okay. I can turn all of this off. And it will remove any exceptions. And we're back in, we're track changes, everybody can edit it. So it is a handy one if multiple people have got access to the document, but you do want to lock it down to say, actually, I only want a handful of people to actually be able to make changes. If you use the restrict editing, you can specify these specific people can make changes to my document and nobody else can. Everybody else can see what's being changed. They can't make edits themselves. Okay, so we had a look at track changes. I'll just turn off track changes in here. So within our document, we could I'll just quickly open this up again. So my how to buy a house that contains track changes. So under review, even though track changes is turned off, we can still see them. We can go through, we can accept, we can reject, etc. Now, the other side of track changes that you may come across is if you turned on track changes, you send a document either to somebody external or somebody within the same organization. They turn off track changes, make changes to the document and send it you back. Now, rather than bringing up both documents on screen and slowly scrutinizing through them to try and see what's been changed. So I just close this one. So I've got how to buy a house demo document version 1. In this same folder, I've also got a version 2. Now, version 2 has had changes made. So this is the scenario of I've created this document, I've sent it to somebody else, they've decided to save it as version 2 and make some changes and then send it back to me. So without track changes being turned on, I then need to see, okay, what's different about version 2? So under review, just to the right of tracking, we've got compare. And if I go into compare, now I've got multiple options within here. So I've got major versions, last version, specific version. These are all linked to the fact that this document is sitting in a folder on SharePoint and version control is turned on in that folder. However, if it was just simply a case of I've just saved this document from an email, what I would have is these two options at the bottom. So I can compare or I can combine them. So running a compare two versions of a document in brackets legal black line. Legal black line is effectively all markup. So strike through, underscore, etc. Combining them lets me merge two documents into a new one that I can then choose which changes do I want to keep. So if I go to compare, so it will ask me which is the original document, which is the revised document. And ordinarily, that's all it would ask me. Okay, where's the original, where's the revised? So if I go in and find it's on my desktop in track changes, and it was, so my original document was version 1. The revised document, if I go in and find this, is version 2. Okay, it's going to label the changes with James Smith because that's who I'm logged into Office as. Now, under More, I've then got my comparison settings. The default setting is it will show me anything that's been inserted or deleted. However, I can then choose anything that's been moved or want to see comments, formatting, as people changed case, have they added white space, any tables, headers and footers, footnotes and endnotes, text boxes or fields. So effectively, I can choose to say, I want to see everything and anything that has been changed in this document. Another important one is, do I want to show changes at a character level or a word level? It's an important one to be aware of. Character level would show me if somebody has changed an individual character within a word. So if somebody changed the spelling of something, it will show me. At word level, it will show me if an entire word has been added, deleted, or amended. So I generally advise to go with character level. And then where do I want to show the changes? Do I want them in the original document, in the revised document, or actually, do I want to put them into a new third document? So for this, I'm going to put it in a new document. I can then go through, accept, reject, and then I can call this one version 3. So when I click OK, it goes and grabs the changes from version 1. So a little bit busy on screen because what it's opened up is my compared document, strike through, underline. It shows me the original and it shows me the revised document. And it's also opened up the reviewing pane on this left-hand side that tells me there are 32 revisions in this document. Now, you can just close some of these other windows because what I want to concentrate on is this document. Quite handy that the reviewing pane shows me, okay, there's 32 changes that I need to go through and look at. I can close the revisions pane. I've then got my options. I can go through and I can accept and reject. The thing it doesn't let me do is accept everything that's shown. The reason is when I go to show markup, it only shows one person's changes. Because the documents were saved as completely separate files, there's no record of who actually made the individual changes. So everything is just labeled as James Smith made all of these changes. But I can go through, I can accept and reject them. What I come out with is my final version that I can then save as version 3. Okay. Other things that you may want to use, you can use things like ink comments. This is handy if you're working on, for example, something like a tablet, or if you've got a laptop that's touch screen. Ink comments let you manually annotate onto the document with comments. So when I switch it on, it would let me, if I'd got a touch screen and a pen, I'd be able to write on the actual document. Okay. So that is my compare. As I say, combine would combine them into a document. Effectively, what I've done is combine them. I've run a compare, but I've said put them into a third new document. I have got the option that I can go and show those source documents as well. So I can reopen the original, so I can look at the original compared. I can show the revised, or I can go back and I can show them both, so I can have all three on screen all at the same time. Okay. There's not an awful lot else to track changes. The main ones that just to go back over, I'll just close this and I don't need to save that. The main ones just to go back over are the most common things that I get asked. So turning on track changes. A useful one is to lock the tracking as switched on. Accepting and rejecting, using your show markup. Do you want balloons? Do you want to see specific people's changes? The only other thing to take you into with track changes is in this markup section, in the bottom right corner, the little angle with an arrow pointing away from it is our track change options. So this little dialog launcher. So this opens up some very simple, do I want to see ink? So if somebody's had a touch screen and they've got a pen or they've manually, I can turn this on and off. Insertions and deletions. Do I want to see formatting changes? Do I want to highlight updates through the document? Balloons in all markup, I've set it as nothing. And do I want the reviewing pane switched on or off? There's two other options in here. If I go into advanced options, so this lets me choose how my track changes are actually shown. So insertions, the default setting is insertions are underlined. As I'd mentioned, they're colored by author. Deletions, the default setting is they're strike through. Again, they're colored by author. Changed lines is the little outside border on this left-hand side. Then you've got options for, do you want to track moves? So if somebody's cut and paste text from one place to another, in this case, it does. Where it was moved from, the default setting is it's double strike through. Where it was moved to is double underline. It colors it in green. If you've got tables in your document, Inserted cells are shaded light blue. Cells that have been merged are light yellow. Deleted cells are pink, and any that are split are light orange. All of these, you can change these colors if you wanted to. Do you want it to track formatting? And there is options, for example, to say just color changes, bold, italic, underline, etc. How does it do them? Again, just like the insertions and deletions, it's colored by author. And if you are using balloons, you can even specify what width you want. Now, within our track changes, I'd normally advise don't change these because everybody understands strike through, underline, insertions, deletions. What you may want though is my documents had edits by 7 or 8 different people. I've got a bit of a rainbow color scheme going on. There is the option, for example, to say, well, okay, anything that's inserted is in blue and anything that's deleted is in red. My formatting moves, I can leave. And okay. Now, it doesn't matter who made the change. Deletions are in red, insertions are in blue. So it's one of those things of if you're finding there's lots and lots of people have made changes and all you want is a simpler view of, I just want to see what's been added and what's been deleted. If you go into Arc into advanced options, you can specify everything inserted is one color, everything deleted is another color. I'm just going to set it back to by author again. And okay. Now, the other thing within here is there is this option to be able to change your track changes username. Now, this is controlled, in this case, by who you are logged into your Office application as. I'm logged in as James Smith. So if I make a change, just delete something. Oh, it helps if I turn track changes on and then delete something. Try that again. So when I hover over it, it tells me James Smith deleted this. Now, I can change my username. So if I go into here, I'm going to change my username. It takes me into Word options. So it then gives me the option, I can personalize my copy of Microsoft Office. So my username is James Smith, my initials is JS. There is also the option to say, always use these regardless of how I'm signed into Office. So I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to change this from James Smith to Quiss Technology with initials of QT. Okay. So now, if I go and make a change, so let's delete this. You notice it's a different color. When I hover over it, it tells me Quiss Technology deleted that. We do have quite a lot of customers who use this methodology and track changes, that effectively everybody's username is the name of the firm. So when you've got documents going externally, rather than there are a rainbow of different colors with lots of different names where people have made changes, if I just go in, everybody has the name of the firm. The track changes throughout the document then just say somebody at your particular organization made those changes. It doesn't name them individually. So if I just go into, oops, just okay on that. So it's within File and Options, and it's under General. You've got this option to personalize your copy of Microsoft Office. This can be set for anybody from a sort of technical background. This can be set via a policy, so it applies to everybody by default. Alternatively, you can come into here and change it. The important thing to note is tick this box to say use these regardless of how I'm signed into Office. If I untick this, it will use my Office sign-in, which is James Smith, not Quiss Technology. So it's just an option. As I say, we have quite a lot of customers who do use this, just simply because it makes track change documents much cleaner when they're going backwards and forwards between different people. It just says, in this case now, all of the changes were made by Quiss Technology rather than they were made by James or they were made by a colleague of James. Okay, and that is more or less track changes. Any additional questions that have come in during the session?
Not as yet, but please do pop them in. One of the questions, James, that just occurred to me is obviously for lawyers, they, a lot of what they might be doing, they might internally be working on a document with a team, which then gets sent to, externally and to the opposing side.
Yeah.
And I'm just very aware that obviously in track changes, there's quite a lot of metadata around this kind of the changes that have been made. How are you absolutely certain that when you're sending something, particularly say if it's going to the opposing side, that you're not sending them the stuff which has got track changes, or they have the ability to sort of reveal perhaps where there's been changes which might be, detrimental?
Okay. That's a really good point. And it's under File and in Info. And within here, you've got this option that you can inspect the document. So as you can see, comments and revisions, document properties, the author's name, etc. So within here, I can go in and inspect the document. So what it will inspect it for, are there comments, revisions, versions, document properties and personal information? So that as you mentioned, the metadata that sits behind it. Add-ins wouldn't matter. Have you embedded documents into it? Are there macros or forms? Is there any ink? I'm going to switch that on because it could be somebody's manually annotated it. Have I got any headings that are collapsed? Custom data? Are there headers, footers, and watermarks? Is there any invisible content? And is there any hidden text? So if I inspect this, it then tells me it's found there are revision marks and comments. So it's found those track changes. There's also some properties. So it's found some document properties and it's found the author's name. If I just close this to show you what it's found. So it's looked through these properties. It's found the original author was a guy called Joe Critch. It was last modified by Quiss Technology. It would tell me things like the title. If I go into more properties, and we can dig a little bit further, to even tell me the company name, give me any statistics, any contents. Are there any custom fields within here? So there's a whole raft of them in here. So using this check for issues, bear with me, my laptop has just frozen. No, my mouse has just died. Inspect the document. The most important ones are these top two. Are there any revisions, comments, etc.? Especially with it, certainly with legal documents where it might be 30, 40 pages long. It's easy to miss, oh, I've missed a track change, or that there's a comment in there that nobody's picked up on. So if I just go in quickly, inspect this, it has found them. When I remove them, I can re-inspect it. It's found some custom XML data as well, which were those tags, etc. I can remove all of this, re-inspect it. Okay, I'm now confident this document is completely clean. When I send it externally, there is no danger of me accidentally sending out unconfirmed changes or even background information.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. I didn't know about that, and that's, I don't do much of that, but I'm sure some of our members do, so that's really helpful. The other question that I have experienced, and I know a colleague of mine has as well, is when I'm opening a document, say on a mobile device, and the track changes don't seem to come up, but when I go into my laptop and I go in via the Word document, Word itself, it seems
Yes.
to show. And whether that is that a thing, or is that just me?
No, it is a thing. Opening Office documents on mobile phones, tablets, it will generally open it in the web version. The web version of Word effectively is a cut down version. So your safest bet, if you needing to check track changes, etc., is open it on your laptop so that you can open it in the full blown app and have all of the functionality.
That's great. Thank you very much. I don't think we've had any further questions in at the moment, but I think there was just one more which came in prior to the event. Not specifically actually about word track changes, but if there's anything else out there that does a similar thing. I mean, I guess most people, if you've got part of a wider Microsoft package, this would be your preference. But is there anything else that does something similar? And I guess, are they compatible? If you get a document in something else, will it show the data?
There is, yes. Historically, there were quite a few. So people may have heard of applications called Compare Docs or Workshare Compare. Both of these applications companies were bought out by a company called Litera. So the main one now is an application called Litera Compare. The thing that does have over Word, Litera Compare would let you compare a Word document with a PDF. So that is the only sort of, there is the option with Word. If it's a text-based PDF, you can open it as an editable document. Obviously, there's the thing of if it's an image-based PDF, you're just going to get an image of a document within Word. But yeah, it's called Litera Compare. But yeah, the thing that does have over Word is you could compare two PDFs, or you could compare a PDF and a Word document, and it will show you detail the changes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Right. I don't think we've got any further questions in, but thank you very much, James. I find that really detailed and fascinating, and certainly learnt a lot along the way. So
excellent. Thank you.
Pleasure. As I said, we've recorded this session. We'll do a little bit of editing and get this out to you. And then by all means, do feel free to share that with your teams. It will also be on the Bristol Law Society website, and probably will go into the Digital Academy also at Quiss, where you will also find there's more recorded sessions of things that James and the team have done on other things and as well. So please do take a look there. If anybody wants to talk to Quiss more generally about IT and technology and in-house training, that sort of thing, then by all means drop them a line. The details will be on the email and also on our website if you want to find out more. But in the meantime, if there is anything else that is on your radar that you would like training on, then please let us know. We're doing a series of these over the course of the year, and we're here to serve you. So let us know what's troubling you, what you'd like updates on, refreshes, etc., and we'll try and make sure that we bring them to you. But in the meantime, thank you very much for your time. There'll be a feedback form as this closes. Please do fill that in, and we very much look forward to seeing you at the next training session with Quiss Technology. Thank you all.